One of the things that I'm very interested in as a Metaverse geek is how fashion will be disrupted by VR. I don't know much about fashion. I wear my own branded merch 90% of the time, which makes my wardrobe very, very simple and easy.
Well, Steve Jobs-esque.
I don't know, I'm trying to copy Steve Jobs, but I do think he had a point in keeping it simple. Literally, my wardrobe is, 90% of it is my wife kind of filling it up.
And we're men, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. But I order the same jeans 5 times, the same t-shirt 10 times, sort of thing. But I'm very interested in how...
And that's good, by the way.
Well, it's one less thing to think about.
Yeah.
Less decision fatigue.
Yeah. Particularly in the mornings.
Exactly, man. Yeah. Like NFT clothing, it kind of seems like a bit of a joke at the moment, but in a decade, I really do believe that people will be spending real money to kind of wear the latest virtual, clothing and uniform. And I'm sure you've seen like Ready Player One and those types of arguably dystopian future, if you view it from that lens. But what are your thoughts on the future of fashion being disrupted by the metaverse? That's not a sentence that I thought I would ever say 5 years ago, but you know this space almost better than anybody. What's your view on what's going to happen in that realm?
So fashion will say absolutely not, and Jonathan says absolutely yes.
Okay.
And I think there's a number of ways to sort of tackle that. So the first way to tackle it is, and I'm saying this as an innovator in the fashion space, if you could choose any sector to innovate in, fashion should be the last one you should ever choose to innovate in. And one of the reasons for that is fashion is also an innovator. Fashion not by definition, but by practice, is constantly changing.
Yeah.
Dior does not put last year's clothes on next year's, catwalk, and then every new collection that drops is the new collection, and everything else is old. And a few months later, the next collection will come along, and today's collection is old. And when we started working with them, what we found is, we would do something in augmented reality, thinking, wow, we've made that work. We're in.
Yeah.
Fashion for you was like, done that now. What's next? What else have you got? And I think if you just look at the catwalks, there was, 1 year is all about drones, 1 year is all about holography, then it was all about AI, then it was all about hyper-personalization, then it was all about something else and something else and something else. And fashion is constantly moving on to the next thing, leaving a lot of, carnage and chaos in the tech world in its wake, not realizing, maybe not even caring how much effort goes into creating that first technical innovation before they're moving on to something else. So it's not surprising to me that the metaverse is dead as far as fashion were concerned, because they were all over it last year or the year before. We did a fashion show, Metaverse, for Tommy Hilfiger at New York Fashion Week in September 2022. So that's the kind of background. My view on it is twofold. One is, the metaverse can't be dead. It never existed, right? Sure. Yeah. The idea of like one unified, all-encompassing digital world where you can flit seamlessly in from social to shopping to wherever, and all the rest of it on any device, where there are no barriers to entry there, that hasn't happened. What we've got are a load of small, self-contained, with kind of rigid walls around them, sort of mini metavi, or whatever the term is, I'm not sure. Yeah. None of which are connected. You've got to leave one to join another, and that there's a lot of friction in that, and it's not going to work. But I think the other thing to say, and again, as a sort of human-centered design studio, which is what we are, we're very interested in them. We are really interested in the metaverse, and we're interested in it because, we don't, in the real world, there are a number of different ways that you can describe core human needs, but one simple way is we all need to play, we all need to acquire, whether that's products, hoodies, knowledge, insight, love. Yeah. We all need to connect, companionship, or to make us feel that we're not all on our own, but we're part of something bigger. And we all need to play. Those kind of 4 human needs are kind of the ones that we exhibit as we walk around the real world. Those are the ones that we'll be exhibiting in the digital world. And we're all increasingly digitized, obviously. We're spending most of our time on digital. And those needs will be delivered by the metaverse. At the moment, bits of those needs are being delivered by different apps. So you join them all together, and it just seems completely obvious to me. And if you are going to be roaming around in the metaverse, in whatever form that takes, you're going to want to do your stuff. You're going to want to have your individuality, your personalization, and that doesn't necessarily just mean we're going to look like those awful sort of naive Mark Zuckerberg kind of play characters. Yeah. We're going to want to be characters that we think are as individual as we are in real life. I mean, I still find it extraordinary that everywhere we go in the world, I don't think we've ever met someone that looks like us, dresses like us, talks like us, behaves like that. We're all so individual.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a lot of homogeneity in the metaverse at the moment because the tools aren't built yet. But
Sure.
but that will kind of change. I think then, if you can get to that point, then the interesting bit is you're starting to understand the metaverse not as a place that you disappear into, but actually as something that's joined to the real world. Yeah. And I think that's where we get very interested in, a place where you can jump into and jump out of. And then you start thinking about, well, a few years ago when we created our digital avatars, they were basically representations of us, like Bitmoji and stuff like that. Yeah. Now, a lot of people are creating avatars that are utterly different. It's an opportunity, it's a sandboxed area to explore different sides of your personality, different ideas, sometimes bad ideas, sometimes, to be able to do things in the metaverse that you wouldn't do in the real world. Yeah. We're very interested then as you re-emerge into the real world. Like, what does that mean? Does that change you? I mean, I'll give you some examples. When the fashion show we did with Tommy Hilfiger, we were lead creative agency, and there was a normal show in Brooklyn with like Kardashians and Kate Moss and Snoop Dogg and his son on the front row. And,
all your best friends.
All the besties.
Yeah.
Travis, Mr. Kardashian, was playing drums as the models came out. And it was great fun. It was great fun until I had to go off and tell Kourtney Kardashian to sit down because we're trying to get the show going. And one of the reasons why I had to ask her to sit down and get the show going was simultaneously there was a Roblox world. Okay. So the show was
a video game.
Yeah, exactly. But the two were conjoined. So the moment the models walked out along the real catwalk, an identical sort of 60-foot virtual model in the Roblox world would walk across the Brooklyn Bridge and into Manhattan, and all these models fanned out, and every virtual model had a superpower. So if you were playing Roblox and you went near one of them, you could start flying or you could start running fast. And at the end of the show, timed in sequence with the fashion show, all of these models were in the Rockefeller Center, and there was a kind of after party with Travis playing drums, and it was really, really, really good fun. When we designed the digital world, the Roblox world, we were thinking, right, let's have these really big, kind of beautiful models. Tommy Hilfiger want the best, the most realistic, hyper-realistic models. But the Roblox community said, no, we want our little blocky characters. And so what we did in the end was explore that and just have a range of very different characters. We had blocky characters, tall characters, beautiful characters, green characters that were bunny rabbits and other, there's a real mix. And when Tommy Hilfiger saw that, they then said, oh my God, that's really fun. Let's do the same on the catwalk. So on the real catwalk, if you look at that show, there are large people, small people, blonde people, white people, fat people, thin people, kids, old people. It was that diversity that was possible in the metaverse inspired Tommy Hilfiger to kind of replicate some of that diversity in the real world. And that's what I mean. Like, what is the relationship between the real world and the metaverse? And, and for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, I'm very sort of skeptical about lots of technology in the short term, but I'm not skeptical about the metaverse. Yeah. I mean, it may be called something else, but until we stop living digital lives,
it's not going to happen, is it? No. We will. The separation between the real world and the online world, that line is blurred and blurred and blurred. And with the innovation of the Apple Vision Pro, right now it's iPhone 1 basic level. Yeah. When it gets to the Vision Pro 6 and 7, it's going to be a pair of glasses, man.
I know, and the irony is I'm sort of wary of this, and the reason why I'm saying it's ironic is because I've been banging the drum of humanizing tech. Creating, blurring that line and making technology feel less like something that you strap onto your wrist, but something that folds itself into your life. And I still believe that. I am starting to worry, but not worry. Well, maybe I'm worrying. Maybe I'm lying awake, stressing and fretting and worrying. But about the idea of AI and life coaches and AI partners. I'm starting to worry whether this notion of humanizing technology, whether AI isn't actually dehumanizing humanity using technology. And again, when you start putting the Vision Pro on, as you're now putting a physical barrier in between us, I just think there are conversations to be had. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but going back to that, what are the behaviors in the real world? And one of them is that idea of connection. connection, in the real world is at the moment connection with real people. Life coaches, Vision Pros allows you to have those connections in the virtual world. And that's part of that conjoined hybrid world. But you don't, I would start to be worried if some of those relationships or those connections solely start to exist in one space but not the other.
Sure.
I remember taking the kids to see, I think Jared Lanier, who said he was the creator of VR. Extraordinary American guy. We went to see him in the Turbine Hall, at the Tank Rooms at the Tate. And he was asked, after he spoke about VR, the inevitable question about when will technology mean that digital is kind of cannot be discerned from real life.
Sure.
And he said, never. He said, I could have gone up and kissed him, which was unusual because he's an interesting looking chap with very long dreads and he's an interesting character.
I know who he is.
But he said, you'll take off the Vision Pro and you'll know you're back in the real world and real world's always going to be better. And I just could have shouted and sung. I'm a little bit skeptical about whether that's still the case. I'm a little bit skeptical about it. I'm just worried that my son would ever take those goggles off.
Yeah. In the same way that we don't separate our phones from us anymore, we get anxiety if our Apple Watch is... Yeah. No, we could do a whole part 2 on Web3, man. Web3 and then soon Web4 is scary. This has been awesome.